Hi, this is Ike from IkesOutdoors.com. Today I'm doing a little work with a new rest, one that I've never really played around with much. So I thought I'd turn the camera on and kind of just film the troubles that I'm having with it and the setup that I'm going through with it. Not necessarily just the troubles, but just the whole setup that I'm doing with the rest. What I'm doing is I'm experimenting. I've got this Destroyer 340. This is the one that we did a review on a few weeks ago, something like that. And what I've got is I've got an Arrow Rest HD Pro Series on here, and we're just experimenting with setting that thing up. I'm just going to give it a good, fair look and see, how well it works. All I've done so far is I've got it centered up and I've got my up and down set, and that's about it. Now, one thing I do like about the quad, QAD, whatever you want to call it, Quality Archery Design, Arrow Rest Pro Series HD, if you want to get real technical. One thing I do like about it, that it has over the ripcord, is once you lock this in place, if I come to full draw, when I let down, the rest stays up. So that's one nice thing versus it over the ripcord. One thing that it's doing though is maybe it's just me because I've set up so many ripcords, is it's making me a little bit hard for me to tune it, because I set it up. What I did is I set this thing up exactly like the instructions in the box said, and I can tell you right now that didn't work out very well. I shot an arrow with feathers on it, and feathers went flying everywhere. I wasn't getting any clearance. So I wouldn't recommend that you that's a good starting point, but one thing you're going to want to read, and they've got it kind of down at the bottom of the instructions, is there's a line right here, and there's a line right here on this part that rotates. You want to make sure, follow the instructions, but you want to pull this back, and before you release it, you want to make sure that at full draw, those two lines are lined up. So I've got that taken care of, so now I'm just tuning it to see what kind of clearance I've got. What I've done is I've got this arrow here with some veins on it, and what I've done to check clearance is I've taken those two green veins, and I've taken a white grease pen and I've marked all over them. And when I shoot, anywhere that's hitting, it's going to wipe the grease off of the grease paint off of this. It's not even grease paint; it's just a grease pen. It's going to wipe the grease pen, that white marking, off of my green veins, and it's going to leave a little bit in here. So I just shot it, and I'm going to shoot it again, and I'm going to see if I'm still getting contact. I think we're still having clearance problems. Still having clearance problems. Don't need a grease pen to tell me that's bad. And that's set up exactly how they had. What they do is they said to put it on there loose, 3 inches down from the bottom of the rest, to pull the bow back, and then once you got it pulled back, to tighten her down, and it'd be in the right spot. Well, that's obviously not the case. So we're going to do some work on it here and see what, see if we can find a problem. Check to see how it's doing is I'm going to actually pull it back with it in the down position, pull it back and see not only how far it comes up, but I'm going to see where the two lines are at. Okay, my two lines are way off. The rest is not coming up nearly where it should. So the first thing I'm going to do to fix that is I'm going to loosen it up, and with the rest up in the locked position, I got this loose to where it'll slide up and down. I'm going to set it down there 3 or 4 inches below the rest, and then I'm going to pull it back, and that's going to let that downward cable actually slide through it, and then it should be pretty close. Then I'm going to make a little bit of adjustment to it after that, but that's my initial step, is to leave it loose on there, pull the bow back to full draw, let that downward cable slide through that clamp, and then when I let it up, it should be pretty close to where it needs to be. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to lock that into position, and to test it before I fire it, I'm going to let it down. I'm going to let the quad down, and those two lines that we talked about earlier, I'm going to pull it back. I'm going to make sure those two lines are lining up. Wow, it's way overdrawing it. We're going to start again. I'm going to do the exact same thing again. I've got it in a lock position, and I'm going to draw the bow back again and allow that slide is really loose, so I'm just going to allow it to, that downward cable to pull through that clamp. Okay, and again I'm going to let the quad down. See, that don't look right because it's not letting the quad fall all the way. And once again, it's way too tight. The instructions that come with the quad don't seem to be that great. So I'm going to show you how to set it the old-fashioned way. What I'm going to do simply is I'm going to let it down, and I'm going to pull the bow back. I've got it set in a position where I think it looks like it should be. I've got the clamp about 3 inches down below the quad, and I've got a little bit of slack in there. I'm just going to pull it back and see how close it is to getting those two lines lined up. You can see there I'm nowhere near where I need to be. So I need to take a lot of that slack out of that cord. Think about buying a quad and see this video and think, man, that thing's a piece of junk. I'm not a technician who's set up hundreds of these. If this was a ripcord, I'd have it set up in about 5 minutes. But I've done a few hundred ripcords. So this is a first experience for me, just like it'll be a first experience for you probably. So I've made some adjustments. Let's see where it's at. Okay, so now it's in pretty good position, but my two lines are not lining up. So I'm going to have to make it just a little bit tighter. When you're making these adjustments, go real minute. You got all the time in the world, so just be patient with this thing. And adjust it. I adjust it, if I'm really close like that, I adjust it about an eighth of an inch, maybe 3/16 at the most. And I'm just going to leave it in a down position again and pull her back. And I'm right there. I mean, I am almost lined up. So I'm going to adjust it maybe a 16th or 32nd of an inch down. Same thing with it in the down position. I'm going to pull her back to full draw. Okay, there we go. Now we got both of our lines lined up. So I'm going to get a good arrow. Okay, so I got one of my wife's arrows here. And we're going to see if we can clear with it. So I would use one of my arrows. It's not that I want to tear up one of my wife's arrows, but all mine have white veins on them, so that grease paint's not going to show up good on them. So this has got blue veins on it, and they're good 4-inch veins, and they've got a right-hand helical to them, so if you can clear with these, you're going to be able to clear with those blazers or whatever else you're shooting. So let's see if we can get some clearance with this thing.